St. Cloud. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Jay.
All right, Jim, the Vikings make a trade. They acquire running back Cam Akers from the Houston Texans. Your thoughts on that move?
Yeah, they obviously needed some running back depth. I am hearing that they're not really counting on Jones being ready for this Sunday, so they really needed depth. They liked Akers when he's here. Listen, he's right now at this point in his career, he's a journeyman running back. He's been in a lot of places. Certainly not an exciting time to have Cam Akers on your team, but he's competent. You just, you need a certain number of competent people. He can follow blocking. He really, early in his career, he looked like he might be a big deal with the Rams. His last couple of years, he has really not been highly productive, but he can play the position, and that's what they need right now.
And I suppose he goes back with O'Connell to the days with the Rams and then last year with the Vikings. They must like him better than Myles Gaskin, I would assume.
Yeah. And Akers probably has a little more high end than Gaskin, but honestly, you probably need both of them, to be active. I mean, you got Ty Chandler, and then really, do you want Myles Gaskin is kind of a limited guy. He's not very big. I think Akers can do more things. He's got a little more size to him. I think Akers is just probably a better player.
But you'd expect Ty Chandler to probably get the bulk of the carries and bulk of the work at running back?
Yes. Now, the new way running backs work, most of them is he's not going to get 80%, 90%, but I would think he'd get somewhere around 60 to 70%.
A couple other big trades in the NFL yesterday. Devontae Adams goes to the Jets. Mari Cooper goes from Cleveland to the Bills. Thoughts on those moves?
Fascinating. Both teams think they can win that division. The Jets have tons of talent. And really, this is the old sunk cost approach, right? They're so leveraged to trying to win this. They're so into trying to win this year. They put so many eggs in this basket. Why not give up a couple more mid-round draft picks to give Aaron Rodgers every chance here? Because the division's fairly vulnerable. Buffalo's probably the best team, but they're not great, at least not right now. Of course, Amari Cooper might change that. And Rodgers, they've lost a couple games where Rodgers wasn't really on the same page with his receiver in the last couple of minutes of the game. Mike Williams on Monday. So, I can't say it's a good move. I can't say it's going to work out. It makes sense when you're this far in on this season to give Rodgers every opportunity because you don't know how long he's going to stay healthy or if he's going to play next year.
Do you think Adams and Rodgers can play at a similar level to what they did when they were with the Packers together?
I wouldn't say that. They're both. I mean, Adams is now an older receiver dealing with some injuries. Rodgers doesn't have the legs he once did or the spryness he once did. I think they can be good together. I wouldn't anticipate great, but if you have great wideouts on both ends, Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, and if they start running the ball effectively, which they should be able to with two excellent backs, then all of a sudden Rodgers can get rid of the ball a little quicker. He's got people he trusts in tight situations. I mean, most games in the NFL are close. It's always hard to give the Jets credit because the owner doesn't know what he's doing, and it trickles down. But this could actually work. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I certainly think they could. They will be talented enough with Adams there to be a playoff team, I think.
Those seem like two logical players to move, Adams and Cooper. Are there some others that would make sense?
I mean, those are the obvious ones. Adams wanted out. They wanted him out, and it was just a matter of who's going to give him the best deal. The Jets ended up giving him a conditional pick that could be as high as a second-round pick. Cooper, great fit for Buffalo. Kelly just doesn't. Allen just doesn't have a number one receiver. This gives them a number one receiver, allows the young kids to be young kids. When they get Cook back, they'll have more of a running game. They could be really dangerous. Is there somebody else out there? Those were the obvious names. If the Bengals feel like they're out of it and they don't feel that way yet, then T. Higgins could be a trade target. Maybe even Jamar Chase if they really think they'll never get a deal done with him. But I think T. Higgins would be the obvious one for people to go after. You just look at the worst teams. I mean, the Jaguars. Is there somebody on the Jaguars you want? I don't know if there is. the Jets are going for it, so you can't say they're one of the worst teams. The Dolphins, maybe. I don't know if I just think they want to keep that group together, so I'm not sure there's a trade for anybody there. I don't know. I'm not sure what else is going to happen.
Are the Lions going to pursue a defensive lineman with Hutchinson being out?
Good question. I don't know. That is their obvious need. I mean, it's a really good team. It's a really good, maybe even great team, and now they lost their only true outside pass rusher. I would look at, maybe that's where a team like the Jaguars or the Dolphins or somebody or Tennessee who's really out of it will have a player that would fit their scheme. But I don't have a name for you right now.
Jim, do you think the Vikings would pursue anybody else?
I mean, as a compliment to Kwesi and his people, they just don't have a desperate need. They don't need a receiver. They don't need a running back as long as Jones is relatively healthy. They don't need a pass rusher. They don't need a linebacker. They really don't need a corner. They don't really need a safety. I mean, you could say they could upgrade offensive line, but offensive line is really about how guys play together more so than individual grade. And, you bring in a pass rusher or a running back, and they just play the way they play. Your offensive lineman really needs to mesh with the people next to him. You could trade for an offensive lineman, but you wouldn't know if he would really get to the point where he's effective in this system or with these players. So I just don't think they have a dire need. Now, if Aaron Jones looks like he's really going to be hurt, maybe they try to get another running back, but I just don't think they give up much for it.
Jim, do you think that Max Crosby could be available? Would the Raiders make him available in trade?
That's a really good question. Obviously, if he's on the market, he's everyone's number one, and he would certainly fit the Lions in a lot of ways. I mean, he'd be a perfect replacement for Aiden Hutchinson. So that's a possibility. I don't know if the Raiders are they're in an awkward position. We all know they're bad, but that coach doesn't want to, tank the season and have no chance of keeping that job. So he's going to want to win games. If he's going to win games, he's going to have Crosby there. So I don't know what's going to happen there.
Jim, does it make sense?
Speaking of bad organizations, by the way.
Yeah, Jim, does it make sense for the Steelers to make a change at quarterback from Fields to Wilson?
In this way, it does. And this is the way they're thinking. This is the way they're justifying it. They always considered Wilson the number one and Fields the guy who would be ready to take over. Then Wilson had some mild injury problems, and it gave them the opportunity to say, okay, we'll play Fields and see what we have here. Now, Fields he's been okay. He's done some good things. He hasn't been prolific as a passer. He's been okay. And it's a team that's winning with defense, and they really want to see what Wilson can do in this offense. So I would say that Fields hasn't really done enough to be able to be offended that he's being benched. But he's shown enough that they kind of like him. So now they want to see what they have with Wilson. If Wilson plays like old Wilson, like young Wilson, maybe they really have something here. Maybe they're really a not only a playoff team, but a tough out in the playoffs. Fields still in that mode where you like a lot of things he does, but I'm not sure you have full confidence in him.
Jim, the Minnesota Wild win last night 4-1. They beat the St. Louis Blues. Good road win. Philip Gustafson not only gets a bunch of saves, but he also scores the first goaltender goal in Wild history. That's an unusual thing to happen.
Amazing. What a game. What a day for him. He played really well. The Wild played really well. That's a tough place to play. They really dominated the game. The Blues had a couple of goals waved off on what looked like legitimate calls. And the Wild, it was a weird game. I think the Wild scored on 2 of the first 5 shots. They were not exactly dominating puck possession or shots or anything else, but they did score quickly. Great play by Kaprizov to set up Hartman. And then after that, Gustafson really dominated the game. He was excellent, and then he gets the bonus of the first Wild goalie goal in history.
Is it possible this Wild team could be better than we expect? I mean, it's 4 games in, so I suppose it's really difficult to tell.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, their high end is a fringe playoff team, and their low end is they just aren't very competitive. So far, they've been competitive. Spurgeon's is still considered day-to-day with lower body injury. That's very concerning. But yeah, I will say this: if Gustafson's going to play lights out, then that changes everything, because then you have a chance to win 3-2 every night.
Jim, the Minnesota Lynx are playing Game 3 at home against the New York Liberty tonight, 7 o'clock at Target Center. What kind of environment do you expect, and how much does home court matter in this series like this?
I don't think it matters that much. I think basketball home court, home field, home whatever, is more significant than most sports because people are right on top of you. But the really good players and good teams love that. They like the trash talk. They like interaction with the fans. They don't care if you're waving things when they're shooting free throws. They just don't care. So you'd want to be at home. It's not going to swing the direction of the game. At least not very likely. It's going to be basketball, and can Collier handle them really clamping down on her? She had 7 turnovers in Game 2. Breanna Stewart played like a maniac in Game 2. If she keeps that up, then Liberty is going to be hard to beat. Does Kayla McBride show up and contribute? Do the Lynx shoot threes the way they're capable of? There's just so many moving parts. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I think Target Center will be rocking. I think this is the latest sign we've seen of many that women's sports and women's basketball are just, they've arrived.
Well, in the first 2 games, the Lynx fell way behind, and then they did come back and win Game 1, but they just could not get past the hump in Game 2.
Yeah, well, they got outplayed. It's not some mystery thing. They got their butts kicked, and that can happen. The Liberty, objectively, are the better team. They were the better team in the regular season. They've been in the finals together before. Breanna Stewart, when she plays well, is as good as anybody in the world. Ionescu is as good as any point guard in the world. So, Liberty are bare. I don't look at it like the Lynx did something wrong in Game 2. I think they had to have a historic, epic comeback to pull one of those games out, and they did well to do it. What scares you, if you're a Lynx fan, is if the Liberty play to their capability, I'm not sure the Lynx can beat them. The Lynx need to ugly up the game and hit some big shots down the stretch, which is what they did in Game 1.
Jim, one last one. The Timberwolves got a preseason game in Chicago tonight. Julius Randle's going to make his Timberwolves debut. Thoughts on Randle?
Well, to me, one of the keys to the season is, Randle has raved about Finch as a coach. He's raved about Finch's system. He said that he can be a distributor, that he wants to be a distributor, that, he was asked to play a certain role in New York, but he can do more things. So we start putting it all to the test. If he is as coachable and able to fit into this system as he's saying, and that Finch believes he is, then this team might, very well, it should be a better offensive team than last year's, even after losing a historically great outside shooter for a big man. If the ball stops when it gets to Randle, if he's not as willing to give it up to distribute, then we'll see what happens. Wouldn't necessarily be a death knell, but it would mean that they're not going to play the free-flowing offense that Finch really wants them to play. All
right, Jim, what do you got in your podcast?
A lot of stuff coming out. We have Prep Day of John Millay coming out this morning. We have Chin Music with Roy and Lavelle talking about the Twins in the postseason. We have the Viking Update show coming out today with the John Krasinski show coming out, is already out, talking about Randle, what happened in New York, Rick Brunson, exactly what was being said and what everybody felt about all that. A lot of good stuff from John there. And we'll do Jeff Diamond's Vikings and NFL Insider this morning, previewing the Lions-Vikings game. Also, our guest on Dawn of Sports with Don Mitchell this week was Carly Zucker. Really, some deep stuff about things she's gone through in her life. She's great talking about it, and everything's talknorth.com.
All right, Jim, I know you're off for a couple of days. Have a good time off, and we'll talk to you again next Monday.
Great. Thanks, Jay.
That's Jim Souhan, Star Tribune sports columnist, joining us every weekday morning at this time. Follow him on Twitter at SouhanStrib. Check out his latest column in the Star Tribune or his podcast at talknorth.com. Mike Grimm, voice of the Gophers, will be sitting in for Jim Souhan tomorrow morning, and then Chip Scoggins, also of the Star Tribune. He'll be joining me on Friday morning at 7:15. And Jim Souhan, once again, today is brought to you by the Green Mill in downtown St. Cloud. Dream Getaway 81, let's get you your code word. The first code word of the day is WIG, W-I-G, WIG. Type that in. You can win a vacation of a lifetime. First code word of the day is WIG, W-I-G. We'll also have code words at 10, 20, and 12:28, and an app-only code word at 3 this afternoon. Time for news.
ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. Early voting began Tuesday in Georgia, and plenty of folks couldn't wait to get to the polls.
More than 328,000. That is how many people election officials say turned out to vote early in person on the first